morning. I'm not used to a microphone, so bear with me. Just like to do a fairly simple 10 minutes on this for what is, for me, a simple process. But recently, especially going through the process myself, I've realised it's actually quite daunting prospect of purchasing a property or being involved in a transaction. So I'm just going to try and explain it a little bit simply, and hopefully you'll learn something from it. So the first step to do is crunch your numbers. Tony mentioned it earlier. At the moment, there's a lot of people that think, great, I've got a massive deposit, I'll go and buy a massive house. Well, it's not just the deposit that you need to think about. You need to think about the repayments, you need to think about the stamp duty, you need to think about all those other costs. So the difference between those two isn't just the fact that one's nice and one's not. You've also got a massive cost to go with that, little cost to go with that. That sounds really simple and obvious, but you'll be amazed at the amount of people that will come up to me and not know the stamp duty, not know the additional costs, not know the more you borrow, the more you have to repay back every month. So, next step, after you know what your budget is, you're going to gather your team together. You're going to need a solicitor, you're going to need potentially a mortgage broker, or you're going to need a contact at a bank, you're going to need a surveyor. So, shop around, find out who you're most happy with. Generally speaking, the cost you're looking at, your legal should be between £650 to £750 plus that. If you're getting quoted cheaper than the £650 or roundabout mark, double check what you're actually going to get charged on top as well. Because most solicitor firms aren't going to charge less than that unless they're also going to stick in some extras that they're not going to tell you about. They're going to charge you extra for filling out a stamp duty form, for example, or for dealing with a lender. So double check what's involved in those legal costs. Your search is also £250 to £300. These searches are required if you're getting a mortgage, and even if you're a cash buyer, they're still advisable. The reason the prices vary is because each local authority charges a different amount. For example, Southend will charge you £105. If you're buying in the Rochford area, £172. If you're buying in London, sometimes even more. Stamp duty. The rates differ obviously with the government, but they're fairly set and have been for a while now. Stamp duty is not payable if you buy property under £125,000. Above that, up to £250,000, you're going to pay 1%. Between 250 to 5, you're going to pay 3%, and if you're lucky enough to be buying over 500,000, you're going to be whacked with a 4% on that. Also, you've got the land registry fee, so once all is done and dusted and you moved in, you've got to pay to register your ownership of that property. This is based on the value of the property, so the higher value of the property, the more fees you pay to the land registry. Mentioned it the other week, we're actually registered for online, which means that we get 50% off all our fees. So if you're going to buy a house for £250,000, instead of you being charged £270, you're going to have to only pay £135. And at the bottom there, I've just popped there, you've got a bank fee. So you're going to send money to the seller on the day of completion, and that's how much it's going to cost to move that money. So step 3, once you know what you can afford, once you know what you're looking for, once you know the area you're looking for, go off and find it. So by all means, keep an eye on Zoopla and Rightmove, but the way the market is at the moment, they're gone by the time they reach that. Average is about 2 days it's being on the market at the moment. So you're probably going to be using those more as a guide at the moment to see what's out there and how much they're going for. What your best bet is actually contacting the local estate agents. I know no one wants to speak to an agent, believe me. But unfortunately, they're a necessary evil in this process. So do contact those agents, register your interest with them, tell them what you're looking for, and get on their mailing lists. It's your best bet for finding the properties at the moment. Don't panic. That's the worst at the moment. People are panic buying. Don't do that. Don't feel pressured by an agent if you've got a related sale to buy a property quickly, or be pressured by your own buyer to get out. Take the time to find what's right for you. Come across too many transactions where someone's gone rushing into something because they felt they had to, only to pull out a few weeks later and slow up the whole process generally, and also cause a lot of aggravation that didn't need to be there. Now once you've found the one, you've got that fimbly feeling when you walk through the door, you know this is it, then you can make your offer. Go approach the agent, make the offer, you hope it's accepted. Once it's accepted, go team. So you're going to gather, again, your estate agent, sorry, you're not going to gather an estate agent, no one wants to do that. You're going to gather your solicitor, your surveyor, your broker, and we're going to start acting now. So, agents are going to send out all the details to all the necessary parties. That allows us to then go and do all the initial letters to write out to confirm we're instructed and ask you for some money for those searches. Once those search monies are paid, and I get the information from the other side, so your seller solicitor sends me a load of documents, I can then submit those searches, have a look at the information that's been gathered, and then I'm going to report to the client on that and tell them, look, this is what I found out so far, and these are the inquiries I'm going to raise as a result. Next step then, we wait again. So we wait, we're going to find out, we're going to gather some information again. In the meantime, do some little digging behind the scenes, but ultimately, we're waiting. We're waiting for outstanding information from the seller's solicitor. We're waiting for the replies to those inquiries that I mentioned. We're going to wait for those search results to come in. At the moment, some of the searches take a few days. They're the ones provided by the provider. The local authority, if you're lucky enough to be buying in Southend, now take 3 to 4 weeks. That's up from a previous 2 weeks, so you can tell how busy the market is at the moment. We're also waiting for that mortgage offer. Each lender, which Tony will tell you, each lender is going to be different. Some are going to get an offer out quickly, some are going to mull it over, and the way the market is at the moment, they're going to mull it over for a good long while, so be prepared to wait on that one. The next step. Once we've actually got everything back, we need to gather the information from the search providers, we need to look at it, we need to check there's nothing nasty hiding in that property that's going to cause you any problems or your lender. We're going to send you a report. So we're going to gather the information, process it and condense it to make it, hopefully, in layman's speak. So that you know, if I'm talking about covenants and transfers and everything like that, you know what it actually means as opposed to a load of legal jargon. The further inquiries come up then. So basically, once we've digested everything, more than likely there's going to be some more inquiries we need to raise as a result. Whether it's, why isn't there planning permission for that side extension? Why have you put a ladder into the loft when you're selling it as a 4-bedroom house? There are basically, that's the stage we do a bit more digging. Once we've done a bit more digging, we're going to wait again. So, like I say, unfortunately, the process involves much of this. We have to wait for other people. Selling's slightly easier because generally it's us being chased to get information out, but when you're buying, you are reliant on so many other different people. It's incredibly frustrating. So, once we've been patient, we are going to then receive, hopefully, the final bit of information, and we're going to produce to you the final report to say, here's the property, and either we're happy with the legal side if you're happy to go ahead and buy it, or we're going to turn around and say, actually, not entirely sure we've got all the information we need, yet more queries are going to have to be raised. Because what a lot of people don't know as well is we do act for the lender. We don't just act for the buyer. So we're acting for Halifax, we're acting for HSBC, we're acting for everyone. And what that means is just because you don't care that there's not planning permission for that side extension or that loft conversion, your lender's not going to be happy about that. And what we need to do is make sure it's satisfactory for their purpose, so in order to then go on and finally sign it off. So once we are able to sign it off, we basically send a certificate to the lender to say, yes, we're happy with everything, can you please let us have some money? At that stage, the one everyone knows about and is desperate to achieve is the exchange. So what's going to happen? Once we're all happy, client's happy, lender's happy, then we're going to get the signatures on the documents, we haven't already done so, and we're also going to ask you to send us that big deposit sum. What happens then, if there's a chain, inevitably there normally is, there's going to be a lot of back and forth between everybody to try and find out what date everyone can do. Holidays, trips to the gym, whatever, you'll be surprised at the amount of different things that people can throw out there to try and avoid particular dates. So eventually, after lots of discussion, and this is to be fair, where the agents come in fairly handy for once, the dates can be agreed, and then we have to remind everyone that for the exchange you are bound to complete that purchase and you are bound to move on that day. Solicitors then have a telephone conversation between us and we confirm that contracts have been exchanged and all is well and good. We then confirm that information to the buyer, either that or the agent. Sometimes the agents get in there quick to give a bit of good news. It's the best bit of the job, to be honest, is when you can tell someone that they've been able to exchange. Celebrate, go out, this is the point where you can actually relax a little bit and carry on packing, etc. But essentially, have a drink. So, in between that, I'm going to do my final legal checks for you and the lender. I'm going to do a statement that says I need X amount of money from you on this day. The lender's then going to send me a mortgage advance. I'm then going to get the money in from you. You need to make sure your property's on buildings insurance risk. You need to finish your packing and please notify the authorities, your council, your utility provider and so on. Day of completion, moving day, money and people basically move around. So bottom of the chain will send the money up to the seller and all the chain goes on. So basically people will redeem their mortgages, people will receive their money, and at the top of the chain someone's probably going to get a nice fat sum in their bank account. Once the monies are received by everybody, basically the agents are going to release those keys. So I will give authority for keys to be released, and then people can go collect those keys and start moving. Again, either the solicitor or the agent will call to confirm completion has taken place, and they should be no later than 2. That's the contract time. But if you've got a very long chain, sometimes it will roll on into later in the day. Then you can unpack. I'm running out of time. Bit after completion basically is me dealing with the registration of everything, getting the titles sorted, putting everything together, and then finally sending you a nice envelope that says, here's your house, and evidence that you own it. Quickly, referrals is basically anyone that's looking to buy property, first-time buyers, people looking to sell, upgrade, sell, downsize, start a portfolio. This is just generally a very quick overview of the process. Commercial property follows a similar process, but it's essentially different. Leasehold property is also a slightly different process and takes slightly longer. But other than that, that's it. Thanks for listening.
Brilliant techniques. Gosh, for the process very clearly. Fantastic, Helen. I want to testify Helen is currently going through this same process with me. Amazing. Every little detail is dealt, the wife deals with it, I don't touch nothing, it's great. And Tony's been fantastic too, but as you said, exactly what it is. A lot of waiting, a lot of being patient, it's killer. So I don't know how they do their job, truthfully. Probably putting less on me in there. But brilliant. And any questions for this lovely young lady, please?
Ellen, how long does it take, like, as a general,
yeah.
I know if there's a big chain and all that, but a standard maybe 3 or 4 people in a chain, how long does it normally take?
Yeah, I mean, it's a piece of string question, so to speak, but it's a valid one. It's difficult to put an estimate. Like you say, there are so many variables that can change it. Generally speaking, we would say 6 to 8 weeks from receipt of the papers from the seller's solicitor. So basically, the moment we can submit our search, we should then be looking to exchange within 6 to 8 weeks of that. Leasehold property, like I said, takes longer because we're waiting for additional information from another party then as well, the freeholder. So you can probably add another couple of weeks on that, if not 3.
Any other questions, guys?
I've got one other one.
You're moving, Craig.
No, obviously, obviously, you know, you mentioned about the money's going through at 2 o'clock, and sometimes, what is the latest that it can actually get transferred? Because obviously we've sat there until who knows what time, and I just want to know what time I can go home at.
It's I've had some nightmares, yeah, because a lot of the time the nightmares comes from the bank, to be honest, because it's the bank's job to send the money in time, and no matter how much you chase them, sometimes I forgot. So you know, someone literally has not pressed the button to say go.
So is it 5 o'clock? Or?
It depends actually. I mean, you can move money the next day and things like that.
Yeah.
And undertake, it's a nightmare, but you can do it. The latest generally, if it's I know Barclays to Barclays, for example, is as long as we've done it by 5:30. Sorry, then it'll get there. So if the other solicitors are on with the same bank, generally it can go to 5:30. Yeah.
Just a silly question. What's the longest chain you've dealt with, and what's been the quickest move you've ever dealt with?
It's actually the same transaction is the answer. That sounds a bit odd, but I had a transaction. It wasn't a long chain, but it took 18 months to go through from start. And it was the buyer messing our sellers around completely. And it was just 3 in the chain. And it went on for 18 months. Clients were pulling their hair out. And eventually it was one I mentioned here actually, without mentioning names, where we stepped in and said, this is ridiculous, they're not going to go ahead, they've failed to complete once, it was a complete mess. And what we did, we actually got Heirs and Crooks found a new buyer for them, and we put it through in 4 days.
I'll take you did get the wine, so that went first.
Yes. Actually, it's their housewarming party on Sunday, so I'm going along to that. So yeah.
Any other questions before we wrap up, please? Fantastic, brilliant. 7 minute big round of